Filter an array with patterns. We've already introduced arrays last time, and today we will be building upon this knowledge and diving a little bit deeper into Bash specific territories. So what's the objective? We now transition to some basic examples of Bash scripting for the purpose of text processing and data managing. In this challenge, we practice reading and filtering an array. So we've already covered the basics, all the fundamentals that we need to know in order to build scripts in Bash. And now, finally, we are getting to the fun part. And the task for today is the following. You are given a list of countries. The standard thing with arrays, we've already done this 5 times in the previous video. And it's the same list of countries again, each on a new line. Your task is to read them into an array. That's what we already know how to do. And the new part is filter out, remove all the names containing the letter lowercase a or uppercase a. Input format, standard thing. The input format consists of list of countries, a list of country names, each on a separate line. That's what we know. And the output from the given list, remove the names that contain either lower or uppercase a in them. If there are no names left after removing these characters, you should display a blank line. So at least a blank line should be displayed. And here is an example, like the countries like Namibia, Nauru, Nepal, Netherlands, New Zealand, and so on. And almost all of them have A inside them, except for Niger. So in this case, the only country that's left on our list is Niger. And that's the output in the example. Okay, so how can we do it? Let's try some things in the terminal first, and then we would go to the final solution on the website. And I could think about a couple of approaches that we could take here. For example, we could use a for loop. We already did it a number of times. We can iterate through elements of an array with the for loop, and we could check some condition for each element. So we could put an if statement inside the for loop, and we could see, for example, if there is an A inside this element, and if not, then we could put that element into some result array. So we could build the final list and the final array this way. We check, okay, is A inside this element? If there is no A inside the string, we are putting it into the final list, and in the end we are displaying the final list. I think that's a pretty fine approach, but there is an easier way in Bash to do it that's pretty Bash specific, and because it's Bash specific, this is the approach that we would take this time, and let's try to see how it works. So we can match elements inside an array based on patterns, and we can replace them with something in Bash, with some string. And how does it work? We access the array. Let's say our array is called array. So the standard thing, $, curly brace, then the name of an array, and then square brackets for accessing elements. And we are accessing them through their indices. So for example, if we want to access the first element, we are giving index 0. And if we want to access the whole array, all the elements, we are giving @ sign. That's accessing all of them. And now the new stuff is / the pattern that we want to use to match certain elements. So it goes through the whole array and checks each element if it matches the pattern. And if so, then it is replaced with some new string. That's how it works. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The thing that's maybe not so obvious is that if there is a part of element that matches the pattern, only this part that matches the pattern will be replaced. So it's not fair. It checks each element, but it doesn't necessarily need to replace the whole element. It can only replace some part of it. For example, we could check where first the first occurrence of some letter in the string, and everything after this letter should be replaced with dots, let's say. And that's something that we could do using this approach, but it's pretty limited. But for the things that we want to do in this task, I think it's sufficient. So here we don't want to replace it really with any specific thing. We want to replace our strings that contain either lower or uppercase a's inside them with empty string. So we could replace them with an empty string, and that's how we can achieve our filtering purposes. So let's try to create a small example. We could create an array called fruits. And inside this array, we can put some fruits like apple, banana, and cherry. And now we can display all the elements. Fruits, fruits, fruits. Add and closing the curly brace. And now, and the pattern can, and that's important thing that I think I didn't mention yet, the pattern can contain regex, so regular expressions. We've already done something with regular expression. For sure, we've mentioned the star sign, that it matches everything, but we will be doing much more on regular expressions in future videos for sure. And here, I think that not every regular expression is supported inside this pattern matching for arrays. I've tried some of them and it didn't work. Maybe it was my lack of knowledge, but I'm pretty sure that not everything is supported. If you know something more about this, then you can definitely write it in the comments. But for this particular task, I think it's quite easy, and we don't have to think about it. So let's try to come up with some example what I want to show. Let's try to remove the element that contains b at the beginning. So that starts with b. Elements that don't start with b are the following: fruits, and now b and star. That's the easiest way how we can do it. So b will try to find any string that starts with b and a word that starts with b, and it could have anything after it. It could be just b. It could be a couple of words if they are in the same sentence that's saved as a single element, and it could be simply, like in this case, a word that starts with b. So star stands for everything, and if at the beginning we have b, then anything else, it would match the pattern. And what do we want to replace it with? We want to replace it with an empty string, so we leave it like this. And we close our echo statement. We can save it and see how it works. So elements that don't start with b are the following: apple and cherry, and all elements are apple, banana, and cherry. But here, I think that you can see it, I can definitely see it, there is 2 empty spaces, and that's something that we don't want to have. That's because the element wasn't removed, it was simply replaced with an empty string. And if we display the number of elements, we access the number with hash. The size of our array is still 3 at the end. So that element is not removed, it's simply replaced with an empty string. But we know that we can simply remove the double quotes. We started with this particular thing for bash, the differences between displaying strings with double quotes, no quotes, and single quotes. And now the expansion is omitted, and we don't we can go around this thing. We usually used this expansion of double quotes because it was useful for us, but in this case we can simply remove the double quotes, and instead of having two spaces, we have a single space between them. And that's the thing that we wanted to have. Oh yeah, bash particular stuff, and definitely not intuitive, but I think it's the easiest way to do it this time. Let's save it. And when the elements that don't start with B, okay. Yeah, and in this case, I've noticed that we don't see the quotes right now because we removed the double quotes that allow us to parse some special characters in a special way. And right now, we don't see the double quotes. So, for example, the don't is without the not double, single quote here, and the same is here with beep. So that's you can say a disadvantage of this approach. But in the case of this task, we don't have to write any strings with special characters. We only care about the elements, and I think that's sufficient. So do we want to see anything else? Yes. Maybe we can add another element like all capital Apple, because we've only matched B at the beginning of the string. But what if we want to have like we want to match some character or number of characters that can be anywhere in the string. So they don't necessarily have to be at the beginning or at the end. They could be anywhere inside the string, and that's the thing that they want us to do in the task. And so we have to find the countries that contain A. So A can be at the beginning, at the end, or anywhere in between. And how can we do it? Elements. Let's write it here, still with this single quote. And it won't be displayed still. Elements that don't contain letter A are the following: fruits. And now we can simply put the star before and after A. And so the string can contain some characters before A, and can contain the characters after A, but doesn't have to. Star stands for everything, either for no characters. So that's the way we can check if the string contains a letter. And now let's save it and try to execute it, see how it works. And the elements that don't contain letter A are cherry and apple capital, all uppercase. And that's because we are checking specifically for lowercase a. And so we are almost there. We've almost come up with a solution for this task. And now we have to use a regular expression. And inside regular expressions, there are those classes that you can define with square brackets, and inside them you can put a set of characters. So not only one, you can put like 2 or 3 or however many you want to put there. And the way it works is that it would match either one of the characters that is specified there. So if you would put ABC inside, then this pattern would match either A or B or C. Yeah, so in this case, apple, banana, and cherry would be a match, and they would be removed from the array, or they would be replaced with an empty string. But we want to use upper and lowercase a, and that's how we can check for it. So either upper or lowercase a would be a match in this case. And the only thing that doesn't contain a letter A, upper or lowercase, is cherry inside our list of elements, because apple starts with A, banana has also a couple of A's, and uppercase apple starts with uppercase A. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Let's try to solve this task, we first have to read an array. In the script we were defining it ourselves. Here we have to read it, and we have to change the default delimiter because by default it separates the elements by a space, and here they're putting them on separate lines. So we have to change the default one, and we want to also read an array. By default, reads into a variable, and if you want to create an array instead of variable, then you have to use this -a flag, and then comes the name of your array, in our case countries, and we want to display the countries. So that's how we would display everything. And now we use our pattern to match either upper or lowercase a that is anywhere inside the string. Let's run the code. Congratulations, everything is perfect, and let's submit the code. And everything is great.